Hey everyone, it's Todd the Cybertruck Truck Guy. Today we're going to be talking about a bunch of ways you can make money with your Cybertruck. Okay, so if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that one of the big reasons why I opted to purchase a Cybertruck is because I actually intend to make money with my Cybertruck. Now, I will tell you originally my thinking was that I would keep my Tacoma and originally I just reserved a tri-motor and I was going to use that as a money making tool. Then the more I got into it, the more I thought, I could really see a case for swapping out my vehicle for a dual motor and having that as my daily driver. And then, of course, I did a video on why you should stop waiting to reserve a Cybertruck. And I was so persuaded by my own video that I reserved a third Cybertruck, another dual motor. And I think my plan right now is like every 3 to 6 months, I'm going to reserve another Cybertruck so that if my thesis of using it to make money works out, I have a steady pipeline of new vehicles coming into the mix. I have heard of people going out and reserving like 10 in a row, but unless they have the ability to buy 10 Cybertrucks at once, I'm not exactly sure how that would work. Generally in business, you need to prove your business before a bank will extend you more money to go out and expand it. So if you're really thinking about turning your Cybertruck purchases into a business and you don't have the financing to buy them all at once, I would suggest that you consider staggering your reservations out so that you're not having to try and solve the problem or lose your reservation thinking you got 10 but then only being able to get one and not having a backup plan. So something to think about. So this is really the first video I've done focused on the Cybertruck as a tool of business, as a moneymaker. So I want to go through some of the things that I thought of on the front end and then talk about some other things that might also be useful. But one of the things I think is really important is when you're talking about using a tool for business, when you're thinking about the cost of that tool, you have to separate two things. So one is the cash flow and one is the cost of ownership. So let me explain. I have vehicles in my fleet right now that are paid off, but we're still using them. So I have a 2012 F550 diesel that was paid off, let's see, in 2017. Yeah, 2017, and we're still using it full time. So the reason I make that point is when you look at buying an asset, most people go, okay, here's what my payment is. It's going to be, let's say it's going to be for a tri-motor, $1,000 a month. And they go, I have to make X amount of money to make that work from a cash flow standpoint, which is fine. That's legitimate. But $1,000 a month isn't actually the monthly cost of owning that vehicle. In order to understand what the true cost of ownership is, you have to project out how long you'll actually be able to use that vehicle and then spread that cost out over the life of the vehicle. And that's how you actually come up with the true cost. I say all this to say that if you're going to use the Cybertruck as a business tool, you're tending to buy more than one, you want to maybe get the bank to help you finance it, you're doing it from a business standpoint, you need to look at it that way. So one of the things we're going to mention is that I believe the Cybertruck is going to have less than a 20 cent per mile cost of ownership. And at the end, I'm going to show you what Elon Musk thinks about that. He thinks it's actually lower, but I'm going to say, let's say 20 cents. You in regular ICE vehicles, especially trucks, the cost is much closer to 50 cents. So it's really important to remember that the whole world is set up to pay people to use trucks at that higher cost of ownership. So part of the advantage of getting a Cybertruck is you're just going to have a much lower cost of ownership. So everywhere where you could make money before, you're going to probably be able to make about 30 to 50% more with the Cybertruck if you can separate the cash flow from the actual cost of ownership and operation. Okay. Enough said about that. The very first thing that I thought about with my Cybertruck is that I was going to rent it out on Turo. Why did I want to do that? Well, A, I didn't need to actually be in the vehicle for it to make money. B, I didn't need to buy the vehicle as my primary vehicle. I was thinking that this is going to be a money maker, and I went out and I started doing research about different ways to make money, and this seemed like the best because I want to show you this differential. Now, maybe you've not looked at this, but Turo is a service that lets you rent your vehicle to other people, and they get about a 30% cut of that, but in exchange, they insure it and they find the people, they handle all the transactions. They make it so you can rent your vehicle sort of relatively easy. So I'm showing you this as a comparison. So they have this calculator. You can go out and say, I have this vehicle and how much do I think I can make with it? So this is a Mercedes crossover vehicle, and it's a $42,000 vehicle, and they're saying we think it'll rent out for about $59 a day, of which you're going to get 41, right? So because they're going to get their cut. And so you're going to get $41. So you're going to make $707. Well, that's probably not, that can't be enough to cover the cost, the payments and insurance on this, let alone maintenance and other costs. So now you look at Model 3. So the Model 3, this is just standard trim, right? This is a $39,000 vehicle. So it's cheaper than it costs less than that comparable Mercedes, and yet it's getting 4 times the premium. So they're saying, hey, on average, you can rent this for $200 a day. You're going to take home 140. You're going to probably be able to rent it out for about 12 days a month for that price. Now, you can probably lower the price and get more days, but there's fewer people that are willing to pay this premium, but there's enough right now that you can still get a big premium for the Tesla. And that has to do with its novelty, and that has to do with its performance. And, people just are really interested in Teslas. Now, that number in Turo has been kind of gradually falling. The problem is I can't get Model Y data because you have to have it's got to be in there for a year or two. So the most current data I can get is 2018. So the Model Y is slightly better than the Model 3 when you go out and you actually look at it. Model S is, again, slightly better than them, but you're paying a bigger premium. My point here is that this is not an expensive Tesla. This is a kind of a low end. You're probably going to pay whatever, $48,000 for this Tesla. And you're going to turn around and make way more money renting it out than you could a comparable ICE vehicle. And the other thing is it actually costs you less in terms of that whole cost of ownership thing, because the Tesla is going to run a lot longer. You're going to be able to not probably get 140, maybe in another 2 or 3 years, you can only get 100 or 80 or whatever. But the point is you get to make this premium, and that's well more than enough to cover the car payments on the Model 3. So I actually think that the Cybertruck is going to be more in demand as a rental vehicle than regular Teslas. And that's because all the reasons why I think it's going to be more in demand in North America. We're talking about the North American market. Why I think it's going to be so popular as a vehicle. And that's because it checks off, it fits so many different needs. It's going to be a great road trip vehicle. It'll be a fun, go out on a weekend vehicle, but you can also take it off-roading and you can use it as a tow vehicle. So there's a bunch of things that people can look at the Cybertruck and go, I want to use it for that. And I'm not even talking about the novelty factor. A lot of the reasons you might get a rental is it's the wedding car that you drive often and you want something cool. Like some people get classic cars, some people get exotic, Ferraris or whatever. People get the Cybertruck because it just looks cool. It's just novel. Now, eventually that novelty will fade away, but I think for the first 5 years, the Cybertruck is going to be really, really novel. And I think the cost of ownership of the Cybertruck is going to be the absolute lowest cost of any vehicle there is in its class. So let's move on. So I wanted to mention City Rent a Truck. This is commercial truck rentals. So the reason I mention this is that it's different than the consumer-based rentals that Turo does. Now, I think Turo, I imagine eventually they're going to offer a commercial option. But I mention this because it's a little different in that most of the time when you rent a commercial truck, the commercial truck is not driving a bunch of miles. But if it is, the way commercial trucks work, you pay a much smaller daily rate. So we rent from City all the time. It's like $65 a day, but then you pay 65 cents a mile. So the advantage of this is you're not going to have a situation where people are racking up a bunch of miles on your vehicle. And in a lot of cases, the vehicle doesn't leave town. People are using it around town. So I think the Cybertruck will be a very popular commercial rental option, especially as a in-town work truck that can tow. So comparable to say F-350 diesel. So, and again, I think that's going to be another way you can make money with this. Lastly, in terms of rental, I want to talk about adventure rentals. So if you live in an area that has good off-roading, you can rent, I mean, these are old trucks, old Jeeps that people are renting for $150. Like, look at this Cherokee. It's $150 to rent this. I don't know what that is. 98, I think. No, maybe a little newer, but it's not very new. That's like, I think 2 or 3 body styles old. So that's an old Cherokee and they're getting $150 a day. The point is that in general, because off-road vehicles, to have really good off-road vehicles, you tend to have modifications to the suspension, and you tend to have more armor, and you also have to be willing to let the vehicle get a little bit beat up. They get a premium on them. Now, the trade-off is you're usually talking like a 4-month window where people are really renting these because that's when vacations are, so I think these people rent all year round, but their peak season is, May through August or whatever, wherever they're at. So this is the kind of thing where if you live in an area that has interesting or fun off-road trails, you could rent your Cybertruck out for this purpose and probably rent it out more in this range, $260, than in this range. Now, again, these are people doing it on their own. They're running it as a business. They have to go out and get insurance, but this can be a very profitable business and you don't need a bunch of vehicles. I rented from a place when I was out in Colorado. They only had 3 Jeeps that they rented out. I could see you having a very profitable side business renting out Cybertrucks for off-roading. So again, another great way to make money. So Hotshot. A lot of people don't know about hotshot driving. So basically there's a gap in the trucking world between semis and what you can ship through like the postal service. And the gap is usually around it's typically either moving vehicles, or it is doing like an emergency delivery of something. So if there is an assembly line and they have a large part, a 200 or 500 pound part that goes down, and the only available replacement for it is 1,000 miles away at the company that builds that part, they will pay you or someone to drive there, pick it up, and drive back, like a super fast turnaround driving situation. And believe me, this is a business. Like, this is a dedicated business. So you can see here where they're saying the median salary of a hotshot driver is around $50,000. But if you're a contract hotshot driver, you're actually getting paid more like double that. And then you pay for the vehicle expenses out of it. But if you have a Cybertruck, your cost, when you factor in fuel and maintenance and depreciation, all that other stuff, it's probably about 30% of the cost of someone driving like an F-350 diesel truck. And you're going to be able to put that spread in your pocket. and you're not going to have to pay taxes on it, because the current way the tax law is written, you get to expense 58 cents per mile. So if it costs you 20 cents per mile, but you expense 58 cents per mile, the spread is cash-free income. So that's another huge advantage of the Cybertruck, is because all the tax laws are written currently for ICE vehicles and the cost of ownership is so much less, cost of operation is so much less for EVs, there's going to be tax-free. There's going to be a way you can write off expenses that you don't actually incur. And it's totally legal, not doing anything wrong. You're just taking advantage of the tax law. So another thing, so this is usually a very popular hotshot driving is, like I said, moving these expedited parts around, but it's also moving high-end vehicles around. So people will buy a $100,000 car at auction, and someone has to get that car to that collector. And so there's a whole industry of hotshot drivers that do nothing but drive these toys around for, the wealthy. So you can also there's also a need for this kind of service in town. So for instance, we pay, if we have a skid steer and we need to move it and we're busy, we can pay a company to come grab our skid steer, load it up on a trailer and relocate it to another job site. And it's like $100. So, and it probably takes, an hour, hour and a half. So it's not necessarily steady work, but if you had a Cybertruck and you got you got set up with your CDL, you could go around to the companies that do equipment rental in town and say, hey, I'm willing to move your skid steers around and pick up and drop off equipment. That's the other thing. Sometimes they rent something to a homeowner and they need to drop off that thing to a homeowner and then go and pick it back up. So there's all these little niches around that you can do with a truck that can tow. So again, this would probably be more like a tri-motor or a dual motor. And for the long distance stuff, I would only want to do this with the tri-motor. But it's a way you can make some money. And there are people that just do this on the side. It's not like you have to do this as your full-time gig. But it's definitely a thing you can do. And I think you can make way more money doing this with a Cybertruck. So there's also a related thing that's like Hotshot, where you relocate RVs. So most RVs are built in Indiana. It's just a weird part of RVs. And so campers, ones that don't have an engine, they're just the camper, those have to actually get relocated, and they have to get relocated with a pickup truck because most of them are too big, too bulky to go on the bed of a semi, and it's actually more expensive. So there's this entire class of people that own like 3/4 ton and 1 ton pickup trucks that do nothing but move RVs around, and they can make, again, they're what they receive, they probably are getting about 100. If they're doing it full time, they're probably getting about 120,000 bucks a year, but then half of that goes to pay for the truck and the fuel. If you have a Cybertruck tri-motor, my guess is that goes from half to about 30%. So instead of paying $60,000 a year for fuel and vehicle maintenance and repair, you're looking at probably more like $20,000, $25,000. Okay, so that's Hotshot and RV delivery. So one of the things about Teslas is that currently with Uber, all Teslas currently qualify for you to go out as an Uber Black driver. Now you also have to be a driver who's approved, and you have to be in a market that has Uber Black, which is mostly like the bigger cities. But when you're an Uber Black driver, you make 4 times what a regular Uber driver makes, 3 to 4 times, plus your tips tend to be bigger. So now you might go, well, I don't think the Cybertruck will be an Uber Black. Well, first of all, Tesla's going to be coming out with its own ride-sharing business, so it might not be irrelevant. But secondly, I personally think, based on what I've seen of the Cybertruck, I would rather ride in the back of a Cybertruck than I would in any of the other Teslas, except maybe the Model S. The reason is I'm a big guy, and the room in a full-size pickup truck cab, a Super Crew cab, is very spacious even for big people. And I think that the distinctiveness and the uniqueness and the sci-fi-ness of it people will be delighted to ride in the Cybertruck. And in this case, it's not going to matter if it's a single motor. Now, I don't even know if the single motor is going to make it, but a dual motor will be great. And so you're talking about, they're saying a base fare of $2 per mile, then you get more tipping. I mean, from what I've heard, people that drive Uber Black can make 60, 80 bucks an hour doing it. So, and again, if you're not needing to do it full time, you could just pick a couple of shifts a week where you're most likely to get an Uber Black fare and drive your Cybertruck as an Uber Black. And the thing is, you can always say I'm willing to drive at a lower tier, because if you could qualify as Black, you could qualify for every other tier except the large vehicle tier, which it doesn't qualify for because you have to have 7 seats. So, but the point is that I think the Cybertruck will be a premium ride-sharing vehicle despite its relatively low cost, because it's a Tesla, because it's novel, and because it's spacious, because it's going to have that glass roof. I think it's going to be an incredible limousine. I think the Cybertruck will be an amazing limo. I didn't even put limo driving on here because Uber Black sort of now has replaced limousine, but that's what I think the Cybertruck, to me, it's like an armored limousine. So, all right. So I wanted to just mention car advertising. I think this is where you wrap, let's see. This is where you wrap your car in a sign. And okay, so there you can kind of see it. So from what I could tell, the rate of pay is somewhere between $100 and $200 a month. But I actually think the Cybertruck will command a premium, and here's why. First of all, more surface area. There's just more space. Secondly, it's a super distinctive vehicle. It will get looked at no matter what. So I think people will notice the advertising more. And thirdly, it's tall. It'll stand out in any kind of a parking lot environment. That's one thing I miss from my F-250 is I could go out into a parking lot and I could see my F-250 because it was standing about 1.5 feet above almost every other vehicle out there. So lastly, I think the Cybertruck, if you can figure out how to do the mounting, will be an ideal mobile billboard with LED, whatever you call them, screens. Because one of the problems that I've seen them say with one of the reasons that doing those on trucks is kind of expensive is they have to have their own power system to drive all those TVs. So they basically have to have a household level power system in the vehicle because the regular alternator can't power all the juice needed to drive those LEDs. So there's an upfit that you have to go through. But Cybertruck, you can just plug them right in. So I think if you can figure out the mounting, you could get a premium for doing those LED type moving billboards. And I think those would be way more valuable. So I also think I think the Cybertruck could disrupt this whole business model because of how cheap it is to operate and the fact that it has onboard power for running, these things. So that's advertising with it. This is something I'm hearing now more with COVID. It has massively driven up the number of people ordering Amazon and doing that kind of thing. And one of the ways that they're solving it is by getting people to use their own vehicle to make deliveries. So, and they're paying just hourly. So I've heard UPS is doing it. I just went out looking. They're looking for people in Colorado here. I just Google it to see what the rate they're saying locally from UPS is $21 an hour. So if your Cybertruck, probably you're stopping and going, you're not putting a lot of miles on, you're probably talking $1 an hour of actual cost to run your Cybertruck. So you're looking at being able to make $20 an hour, which that's pretty good. I think, especially depending on your age, depending on the flexibility of this, like I make more than that at my regular job, but I would do like I would do Uber if I could do it on my own and I was driving my Cybertruck. I would go do it even if I don't make as much as I do on my day job because it's like free money. It would just be fun to do. And I'd do the same thing if I could go, well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, it says you can do 2 to 6 hour blocks. And I might go, well, hell, I'll go out for 4 hours on a Saturday, get some exercise, go out with my Cybertruck, make $80. You know, I would do stuff like that just because it would be kind of interesting and fun and a way to make some money on the side. So the last thing before I talk about Robotaxi is vehicle to grid. This is not a big money maker. No one says that it is, but it's a way for you to make just some side money without having to do anything if they set the Cybertruck up with vehicle to grid. So according to this study, the estimated value to the EV owner is about $870 per year if you do VTG. So what vehicle to grid does is it lets you basically charge your Cybertruck when power is cheap, usually overnight, and then you can discharge it back into the grid when power costs more during usually from like 3 to 9 o'clock at night. And that differential, you get a piece of that. You know, the power company gets a piece, but you get a piece of that. And it looks like if you optimize to do it, you could maybe make an extra, 50 to 75 bucks a month. It's not going to change your life, but you start piecing these things together and it adds up. All right. So I want to end with robotaxis. I think most of us assume the biggest money-making feature of the Cybertruck is probably going to be robotaxis. So I wanted to just go revisit. This is probably the best condensed bit Elon Musk has given about robotaxis. So I want to just watch this and then comment on it real quick.
So the current cost of a Model 3 Robotaxi is less than $38,000. We expect that number to improve over time. And we're designing the cars currently being built are all designed for 1 million miles of operation. So the drive units are designed and tested and validated for 1 million miles of operation. The current battery pack is about maybe 300 to 500,000 miles. The new battery pack that's probably going into production next year is designed explicitly for 1 million miles of operation. The entire vehicle, battery pack inclusive, is designed to operate for 1 million miles with minimal maintenance. This is the cost of running a gasoline car, or the average cost of running a car in the U.S. This is taken from AAA. So it's currently about 62 cents a mile, 13,500 miles, 250 million vehicles, adds up to $2 trillion a year. These are literally just taken from the AAA website. The cost of ride sharing is, according to Uber and Lyft, is $2 to $3 a mile. The cost to run a robotaxi, we think, less than 18 cents a mile. And dropping. Like this would be current. This is current cost. Future costs will be lower. If you say what would be the probable gross profit from a single robotaxi, we think probably something on the order of $30,000 per year. And we expect that we're literally designing we're designing the cars the same way that commercial semi-trucks are designed. Commercial semi-trucks are all designed for a 1 million mile life, and we're designing the cars for a 1 million mile life as well. So in nominal dollars, that would be, a little over $300,000 over the course of 11 years. Might be higher. I think these consumptions are actually relatively conservative, and this assumes that 50% of the miles driven are not useful. So this is only at 50% utility.
I think this is a good place to end it. If you assume in general that the cost of running a Cybertruck is going to be a third of the cost of running a regular ICE vehicle. I think the same math is, even though the Cybertruck is going to have a higher operating cost, on a relative basis, when you're comparing it to a pickup truck, it's going to probably be, it may even be better than this. So we're talking about a third. So, and in this scenario, you have the flexibility to let your Cybertruck be a part of the Robotaxi fleet full time, maybe making as much as $30,000 a year, but you're still going to have these other options. So if you can make more money renting through Turo, or you can make more money doing a Hotshot Driver, or you can make more money doing any other job, you're going to have the absolute flexibility to do that when it makes you more money, and then put it into the Robotaxi fleet when it doesn't. Personally, I think the Cybertruck is a revolutionary money-making tool, a revolutionary business tool. And it's going to be allow so many people to make money so many different ways. I just scratched the surface today. That's it. Live stream tonight. Like, subscribe, blah, 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 all that other stuff. Other than that, we'll catch you later. Bye.